Hello, and thank you for joining Fireside with the VC. I'm back with Nic Brisbourne, probably one of the few venture capitalists that can say I've continuously been a VC in London since 1999, from Reuters Greenhouse or RVC to Esprit Capital Partners, which became DFJ Esprit and now Draper Esprit. And I think he's 7 years into Forward Partners, where he's the founder and managing partner. And we're going to talk about meditation and the importance of meditation. Nic, maybe, I think it was wasn't it in between DFJ Esprit and Forward that you went to India or figured out what to do with 4 weeks?
Yeah, good memory, Andrew. So I'd always been interested in meditation, but I'd never done anything about it. You know, like there's some centers in London, and I'd written down some phone numbers, but I hadn't done anything about it. And in the over New Year's 2012, 2013, I was away skiing with my wife, and so we did some New Year's resolutions, and I said, this year I'm finally going to do something about meditation. And that was around about the time that Headspace had gotten started. And so actually the first investor in Forward Partners, Neil Hutchinson, he put me onto Headspace. And so I did that, and I quite liked it. And there was, you know, like I did the, 10-minute guided meditations, 20-minute guided meditations, started getting up to 30 minutes. And that was all right, but didn't really kind of quite capture me. And then I was in the final throes of getting Forward Partners started. And suddenly I had a 1 month gap when I didn't need to be working. And so Fiona, my wife, said, you should make sure you do something interesting with that. And all right, I'm going to go to India and meditate. I'm going to go there.
And so you didn't bring her with you?
No. She was like,
suggesting, what are we going to do for a month? And you said, I'm going to India by myself.
So we had 2 small kids. They were at school, and but yeah, she did start joking that it was like being a single mum.
Yeah, I get that too. I travel enough that I hear that from my wife.
And so I found a meditation focused ashram in India, hightailed it out there, and it was remarkable. And so, like the first day, I found myself sat in this dark room with Swami Veda, the guru, and it's this semi-religious ceremony. We're all meditating together. I'd never meditated for more than half an hour, and only with Headspace talking in my ear. And suddenly, like, we're in this dark room. It's like a religious experience. We sat there for an hour. I'm like, don't know what to do. My back's hurting.
What was the temperature? Didn't you hit India at like guaranteed heat wave peak conditions?
Yeah. They told me 3 times not to come, including getting a call the day before I left from the guru saying, like, you shouldn't come because it's too hot. So I arrived in New Delhi airport 1 o'clock in the morning, and outside temperature was 43 degrees centigrade. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's hot.
Yeah, that's like Texas in August. That's 104 or something bad.
Yeah, exactly. Properly hot. But I'm like, look, if I don't go now, I'm not going ever, and I don't mind the heat. So we just did it. But this room was air conditioned where we were doing the meditation, so that was okay. But then, so I practiced meditating 2 hours a day. We had classes. I did a meditation, how to breathe. We did yoga, so my back got a lot stronger, so I could sit and not be in pain. And after I've been there 2.5 weeks, I was sat in that same room and learned how to quieten my mind and had my eyes closed, and we're about kind of 40 minutes into the hour-long meditation. And I suddenly started to get these euphoric waves. And I don't know if I've told you this story. These euphoric waves, I still picture it now. And my mind said, God, the guru's talking to you. And then the other part of my mind goes, don't be silly, Nic. Just stuff doesn't work like that. It's just your subconscious playing with you. But there's this kind of like powerful sense at that point, and it just felt really good. And so I was kind of hooked on meditation from that moment. And and still now, when I drop into meditation, I get that kind of like an echo of that euphoric feeling. And having read up a lot on the science of it since, what's remarkable is that when you meditate, then if you meditate regularly, then it changes the structure of your brain. So your prefrontal cortex gets thicker, and you're better able to control your flight and fight response. So, the mediation to your amygdala is controlled better. And so one of the ways that manifests itself is when you sit to meditate and you relax, and you get a little dopamine release. That's what's going on from a chemical perspective. And so that feels good, and you settle into the meditation and you quieten the mind. And so that's once you've done enough meditation, you've had those physical changes, that meditation becomes a pleasurable experience like that, then it's much easier to keep up that habit. Now, the importance of meditation for me is not the lot of kind of dopamine hit and that it feels good. That's nice, but the real importance is the way it relaxes the mind. And come to think that the analogy with exercise is really apt. So my morning routine now we're in lockdown, I get up slightly later, so I get up at 6:30, I meditate for half an hour, then I either do half an hour's yoga or I go for a run for half an hour. So I'm doing like an hour's worth of work on myself, half hour exercise for my mind and half hour exercise for my body in the morning before I start work. And the way that I exercise my body, everyone's doing that now, right? 50 years ago, nobody was exercising, and people didn't understand that it was good and didn't know how much you needed to do. It was like hard work. And so a few people did it, but not that many. And I think that's where we are with meditation now. I think people are just starting to understand that it can be helpful, but the benefits are not clear. It's difficult to do it first. It's not hard. It's not clear how much work you have to put in before you're going to get anything out. And a lot of the language that people use to talk about meditation is really unhelpful, I think, in this regard. Particularly some of the, like it's easy to read and so, okay, so if you meditate an hour a day for 20 years, then you're going to be a different person. And like if a guy like you or a guy like me, I think, oh, I'm not doing anything an hour a day for 20 years. What's that about? Like I've got a spare hour. I'm gonna do more work, or I'm gonna spend it with my wife and kids. And like where do you take the time from and why?
You're saying like the flight, what was it? Flight response.
Flight response. Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine yourself in an airport trying to get home from a week-long trip to Asia or something, and all of a sudden everything's going wrong. How you're going to respond to that if you've been meditating is probably different than if you've not been meditating.
Yeah.
And divorce rates, people say, go up, or for entrepreneurs, if you're dealing with forward partners, seed to pre-seed, early stage, exciting roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship with family and life, to have the meditation in some of your portfolio. This is not just Nic Brisbourne, I love meditation, but it actually could have a financial impact.
I without doubt, it's made me a much better managing partner at Forward Partners, a much better coach to the entrepreneurs that we invest in. And so there's a famous quote from Viktor Frankl, who is a Holocaust survivor and philosopher, and he says, in between stimulus and response, there's a moment, and by taking control of that moment, that's where you can control your life. And meditation really helps you to take control of that moment much more. So when something hits, then you're able to just kind of roll with it a little bit and choose your response. And we all do this to a greater or lesser extent. Like when something which is a little bit of a bad surprise hits you, like maybe you get stung by bitten by a small fly. You go, oh, that's annoying, but I'm not going to react too much. Then you get stung by a wasp. You go, ah, right? And what meditation allows you to do is react to the wasp sting a little bit more like reacting to the bite from the smaller fly.
So that could be a zinger email you get from a customer, an employee, an investor, right? I get emails that I just don't try not to freak out about anything anymore. But if I, what you're doing is you're meditating. You've actually met my wife Pavlina, if you remember her. She she does guided meditation, and I often have these early calls to the Middle East and Europe, and meditating in the afternoon is maybe not as effective as morning. I should maybe change my perspective on that.
I don't think I wouldn't say I'm an expert on this, but I don't think that there's a better time to meditate in the day necessarily. Mornings work for me because I can control my schedule in the morning. Like I get up and I do my meditation and my exercise, and then I start the day, and that way the day can't screw with my meditation and exercise. And so
really, the best way to get anything done is do it immediately, period. And if my grand plans for exercise in the middle of the day during Corona, we're recording this in the middle of lockdown, or hopefully towards the end of lockdown. The only way to make sure you get your exercise is do it right away. But maybe I'd like to talk about, you were telling me that you actually spoke to every CEO about doing it, and they were coming back of saying, if I had the extra time, I'd sleep more, exercise more, meet my children for the first time. What happened there?
Yeah. So last year we ran a mindfulness meditation program for the CEOs in our portfolio, and so the hypothesis that I had and still have, although it needs, we haven't rolled the program out more widely, is that if we can help our portfolio CEOs to, I'm going to call it develop a mindfulness habit rather than a meditation habit. And so meditation refers to the practice of sitting and monitoring your breath, maybe saying a mantra, doing that for 10, 20, 30 minutes, an hour. A mindfulness practice can encompass meditation, but also has a repertoire of other tools which allow you to reflect on what's happening in your life and the way you're thinking about things. And so journaling is a mindfulness tool. And so the hypothesis is that if we can help our portfolio CEOs to develop mindfulness habits and maybe a regular sitting meditation habit, then that will make them happier and make them more effective as CEOs of their businesses. And in particular, it will help them to ride the roller coaster and be less affected by the roller coaster and make better decisions through, like it's easy to go wrong when things are, make bad decisions when things are going amazingly well, and also when things are going really bad, right? You want to kind of like bring in those extremes a little bit, and that's what good mindfulness practices will help you do. Yeah. And so I spoke to probably 15 of the CEOs in our portfolio who I thought would be interested to gauge their response. And 10 of them thought it would be an amazing idea, so we ran the program. But others didn't, and so the most common was I'll struggle to find the time. And so the ask I was making from them was, look, if I put on this course, it's going to be expensive, and so I need you to commit an hour a week for 6 weeks. Okay. To come to, like, we're going to get together in Islington in North London, and to do 5 minutes a day practice on the other 6 days a week. And so they're like, okay, and please don't start on this if you're not going to finish it. And so some were saying like this is really interesting, but I can't promise that time commitment. And then there were a couple, one you referred to, who, well, look, if I had the spare time, like, this does sound amazing, and if I had a little spare time, I would definitely do it. But right now, I'm not sleeping as much as I would like, I'm not exercising as much as I would like, and I'm not spending as much time as I would like with my kids. And so if you give me an hour a week, then those three things are taking priority over.
Yeah, but it's myopic because you might be sleeping better. You might be getting better sleep and, get the dividend. That's the hard thing of, it's easy to measure money out, money in, venture capital, TVPI, DPI. These things can be measured in dollars or pounds or yen, right? But for this sort of thing, it's a little more soft and amorphous for them to quantify and justify, and culturally can be tough to get them in. I think it's like you said, 100 years ago, exercise was considered sitting in a pub, right? Where
If you said I went for a run, I love this joke. If you said I went for a run yesterday, they would say, who was chasing you?
Oh,
Like, why would you ever go for a run unless someone was chasing you, right?
yeah, but I've heard stressed out entrepreneurs and VCs say if you think you don't have time for exercise because you're too busy, that's exactly when you need some exercise.
Paul Graham loves to say that, right?
You know, and there's some truth to that. Yeah.
But the you know, so there is a lot of truth to that, and with exercise, people kind of know it, but they don't do it, and the reason that they don't do it unless they're nudged is that, you know, the when you don't exercise, you don't feel that immediately, right? It doesn't make an immediate difference to you. You start to feel that over a week or two, and so it's easy to put it off. And it's the same with meditation, right? So if you don't meditate, then if you have a meditation practice and you stop, you don't feel it immediately. You start to feel it over a few days. But if you're starting for the first time, like imagine that, like, you know, someone's telling you to exercise, but you're completely unfit in the first place. And so before you can even start to get any benefit from it, you've got to drag yourself up the learning curve. And you've got to drag yourself up the learning curve of this thing, meditation, which a lot of people are talking about, and everyone's very excited about, but no one can actually say exactly how or why it's better for you. There's some interesting brain, do you know what I mean? And so the benefits are nebulous. And so I always say it's right, the benefits are nebulous, the learning curve is steep, and that's why it's so hard for people to build habits.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see it quantified by somebody, you know, like do an actual master's or PhD and do some studies to make it more black and white obvious to people. Because for those that have tried, it's big. I mean, for me, getting into meditation was a lot more work than I expected in the beginning. And it's thanks to my wife with the guided meditation that it's become something that we can do together too.
So that really helps. So there is more and more research, and it's the amount of studies have mushroomed over the last few years, and largely driven by declining costs of MRI scans. But one of my favorite examples is, and you can find all of these in a book called Search Inside Yourself, written by a guy from Google who runs the internal mindfulness program at Google. And so there is a Boston-based biotech company with about 200 employees, this tech startup. It's a high-stress environment, and they ran a mindfulness meditation program for their employees. And after an 8-week program, they asked them to fill out a survey, and the people who had completed the program reported feeling less stressed and a bit happier. Fine. But two really interesting bits of additional data. So one is that they brain scanned them, and after just an 8-week course, they could detect differences in their brain structure compared to the control group. That's one. Yeah. And then two, this 8-week course finished in the autumn, in the fall. And so it was time for flu jabs. And so the company was offering flu jabs. And so they measured the immune response to the flu jab. And after just an 8-week meditation course, the people who'd done the course had a much stronger immune response to the flu jab than people who hadn't. So, like, you know, it strengthens your immune system within 8 weeks. And there's lots of kind of small examples like this. What we lack still is a coherent theory of meditation and how it really drives help. But the small pieces of kind of contributing, probably circumstantial evidence, just mounting and mounting and mounting.
Well, you know, COVID is an accelerant on digitization. Like I read in the New York Times this morning that Walmart's online sales are up 74%, not surprising. And that if you're working from home or starting to migrate towards some working from home, some going into the office and shifts or whatever, or permanent change culture, people can find the hours to do it. And living with COVID, immune boost is, you know, should make sense to anybody, as opposed to taking unproven drugs. Not that anyone important is doing that. But listen, Nic, I'll close by saying I'm not surprised to hear you doing a mindfulness meditation program for your portfolio. It fits in with the playbook of applied VC, of adding value beyond the checkbook. It would be surprising if it didn't make sense. The other interesting thing is, having been an entrepreneur and a VC my entire life, I look at, you go to join a health club, and they say, oh, do you work for an enormous company like IBM and get a discount? And I'm like, no, I've got my own venture firm. It's like 10 people. do I get a discount there? And you get punished for not getting it. You know, at Google, they have like teaching you how to cook where there's like these stations of stoves and ovens and sinks. Like they get so much at those places. And we in startup world don't always have that. So it's cool to see your applied VC model at Forward Ventures, even, you know, bringing this to, you know, your portfolio companies where normally you have to work on some huge campus like VMware or Google to get it.
Yeah, completely. And broadening that, you know, we ultimately, as startups are going to be the most successful if they've got access to those same sort of, you know, not the kind of funky benefits that's like not cooking doesn't make so much difference, but the things which are really going to help drive your performance and your effectiveness. Then, you know, like if we can make those same tools available, then it's going to help our startups. It's going to help the individual founders to be successful and to be happy. So that's everything we're about.
Nick, I'm going to have to introduce you to the head of food at Google, and she'll change you. And in a year from now, you're going to tell me how you're teaching forward partners, portfolio companies to be healthier and feel better because they're sleeping better and the whole thing because of food. So don't write it off yet. Don't write it off yet.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, Nick. Listen, thanks so much. We're going to come back with one last session for anyone with the stamina and talk about the difference between venture in the UK, Europe versus US, and even responses to COVID and what to expect. Thanks so much, Nick.
Thank you.